Welcome to the Fantasy Baseball Beat, part of the Pitcher List Podcast Network. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Torres. I'll be your host today. On today's episode, we are going to be talking all things Pittsburgh Pirates. I will be interviewing Noah Hiles, who is the Pirates beat writer for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Mike and Dave will join me later for a fantasy deep dive into this Pirates team. But for right now, let's get right to it and bring in our guest. Again, we've got Noah Hiles here with us. Noah, thank you so much for joining me. How are you today?
So should I call you Torres or Chris? Which do you prefer?
Let's see. Let's go with Torres for today. I like to switch
Torres,
it up a little
how are
bit,
you?
so we'll go with Torres. All right.
Good.
So let's start by talking about a player who actually is not currently on the Pirates Major League roster. But is one that fantasy gamers, if they don't already, should become familiar with, and that is Konnor Griffin, who is now considered by many to be the number one prospect in all of baseball.
Yeah.
I know you were at the game last night watching Konnor play for the Altoona Curve in their playoff game. You had some nice seats there. I saw the picture on Twitter. And you also recently wrote really a fantastic article really doing a deep dive into Konnor Griffin and talking about some of the challenges that he's had to overcome to get to the point where he is today. Noah, if you could start out by just telling us about Konnor Griffin, the player, his ascension this year, and the big question that fantasy gamers are going to want to know is when do you think we're going to see him in a major league uniform?
Yeah, so Konnor Griffin is a kid who grew up in rural Mississippi, about 30 minutes outside of Jackson. It was pretty clear from a young age that this kid was going to be a really good baseball player. He was recognized by some big-time agencies in middle school as a potential talent, quickly established himself on the travel ball circuit by the time he was a senior in high school. He was rated the number one player in the country. His senior year at Jackson Prep, one of the top baseball program in the state of Mississippi. He capped off a 4 straight year run of 4 straight state championships and was named the Gatorade National Player of the Year. He was the top high school prospect for the 2024 MLB draft class, and he was selected 9th overall by the Pittsburgh Pirates. A pick where he probably, in hindsight now, absolutely you could say he went a lot later than he should have, but a lot of experts even projected him to be a top 5 pick, but it was a college-heavy draft, so he slid. And the Pirates were able to get a really good player at number 9. You look at his physical makeup, and you see a potential 5-tool star. He's 6'4". He's 225 pounds, and he can play shortstop and center field. He can run, he can hit for power, throw. He can really do it all. I was a little bit skeptical of the pick at first just because the Pirates have had issues with developing young hitters throughout this current regime. And this was a young hitter. This was an 18-year-old. However, when I first saw him in spring training this year, my mind quickly changed. It became clear that this is one of those guys where, similar to the guy they took in the first round the year prior, you don't really need to do a whole lot of training for them. You don't need to do a whole lot of developing. The guy they took in the first round the year prior was a pitcher named Paul Skeens. I don't know if you've heard of him. Yeah, so this was a guy that it was pretty clear he's just physically gifted and knew the game really well, and it was they can kind of just stay out of his way. He's going to do some special things. And this year, his first year as a professional, last year at this time, Torres, he was playing high schoolers, guys who look like you and me, a little younger, but, with that same amount of talent.
What are you trying to say about my age here?
No, I'm saying that should be a compliment, right? Okay. I'm saying you could be playing high school ball. You look good for your age, Solid 25, right? No,
of course.
But guys who are, young, and he goes and advances into professional ball, and he's just dominated 3 minor league levels now. He started off in low A, played 50 games there, just absolutely mashed the ball, was hitting over 330 and OPS over 900. He was stealing bases, hitting home runs, playing excellent defense, both at center field and at shortstop, gets the promotion to high A, where that production continues. His OPS actually went higher. He was stealing more bases. He was walking at a higher rate and striking out at a lower clip. So at 19 years old, in the end of August, he gets a promotion to Double-A, which is where he currently is now, playing shortstop for the Altoona Curve. He's hitting over 330. I believe he's hitting 340 right now in Double-A in his first 16 or 17 games with the Altoona Curve. He already has 5 home runs, which is 2 less than his total in 51 games in High A. So he has 5 home runs in 17 games in Double-A already. This is a guy who stole 60 plus bases in his first minor league season in 118 games. Like I said, the OPS sits over 900. He's a plus defender, hitting over 330 altogether in his first year of minor league baseball. There's really just not a knock to this guy's first year as a pro. He still has some time to go, right? I mean, he's 19 years old. He's played less than 20 games in Double-A, but it is a realistic conversation when we talk about his timetable to the major leagues. I think by June of next year, he's a big leaguer. And those are conversations that have kind of been echoed through people in the organization, people in the Pirates org. They don't have a timeline set for him. Obviously, you don't want to do that with someone this young. You don't want to set that expectation. But I think it's in everyone's mind in the Pirates organization that this guy is going to be a contributor in 2026. It's not going to be a circumstance where you see maybe some service time manipulation like you can see from other players in the Pirates organization in the past, or even, outside the organization. Other times, or other teams also manipulate service time a little bit. I don't think that's going to be the case with this guy. I think they just need to see that this 19/20-year-old, when he turns 20 in April next year, whenever he looks ready, he's going to be here, and he's going to be their starting shortstop for a long time to come. This is a guy who I've had people who have been around Major League Baseball for decades, people who've played the game at the highest level, coached the game at the highest level, compare him to Mike Trout. They've compared him to Cal Ripken Jr., Alex Rodriguez. Those were 3 comparisons I received from people who played Major League Baseball. That's what they compared Konnor Griffin to.
Wow, that is exciting. I mean, this
Yeah.
dude sounds like the real deal. I mean, he's 6'4", 225 at 19 years old. Oh my God.
My first image of him, I mean, I had interviewed him over Zoom when he got drafted, but because he was so young, they didn't have him play any minor league games last year, like straight out of high school. He just went to the rookie development camp. So I walked into the clubhouse the first day of spring training when pitchers and catchers reported. And for every team, there's a couple of guys who show up early, right? But typically, I was like, who is this? His back was turned to me. He was shirtless. His back was turned to me. And I was like, who is this muscle freak that they just signed? I thought he was some, reliever who like just is a workout freak, who probably has can't throw the ball over the plate, but is in really good shape. He looked like, and because he was on the Pirates last year, he looked like Aroldis Chapman body type. And Aroldis Chapman is the most physically fit baseball player I've ever covered. But with his back turned to me, I was like, who is this, white Aroldis Chapman with his back turned to me? And then I turn around and it's an 18-year-old at the time. I mean, he looks like an NFL tight end. And that's probably my biggest question pertaining to Konnor Griffin moving forward, aside from the obvious ones of how does he adjust to big league pitching or whatever. It's how much more muscle is this kid gonna put on? Because, I mean, you're not done growing at 19 years old, especially when it comes to accumulating body mass. And while shortstop, I think, is his clear position of the future, can a 6'4", 240-pound player play shortstop? I don't know if we've ever seen that, right? So I think 6'4", 225, we're pushing the limit right there. That's, we're exceeding Corey Seager territory, A-Rod territory, Cal Ripken Jr. I mean, those guys were big, but I don't know if they've been that bulky. But you can get away with it with Konnor's speed and agility. But 240, I just don't know if the body can move that smooth there. So, and what do you do with him if he continues to bulk up? Does some of that speed go away? Do you move him to third base? He can definitely still be a great outfielder. But it's going to be interesting to see how this kid continues to grow physically, because he's just so far ahead of where most 19-year-old ball players are.
Man, that is super exciting, and that's interesting. You think he's going to be up by June? I wonder in fantasy what people are going to, how they're going to draft him this offseason. I guess we'll have to see what the reports are and what the news is as far as, what the timeline is looking at. But I almost wonder if fantasy gamers are going to be a little reluctant, because a lot of people bought into, and we'll talk about this player later, Bubba Chandler,
Yeah.
and everybody was thinking, okay, well, whenever he's ready, kind of like when Skeens, came
Mhm.
up in, I think it was June, or
It was
people were
May.
like, he's
Yeah.
going to be up, and then he never really came up until August or September, and I wonder if people are going to be a little reluctant. But man, 65 stolen bases for Konnor Griffin, in the minor leagues. The year before, in only, he was at high A, had 33 stolen bases and only 234 plate appearances. Like, this guy is going to be, even if there's maybe a little adjustment, to major league pitching, just the fantasy juice that he's going to
That's
provide is going to
yeah.
be just massive. So, for those of you listening, get out. I mean, if you're in Dynasty, obviously it's a different. Konnor Griffin is rostered. But as you prepare for next year, this is a name that I think needs to be circled, and you really need to be pushing aggressively. Let's talk about the Pirates' former shortstop, who was their former top prospect, and that's O'Neal Cruz, who's now
Yeah.
their everyday center fielder. Um, Actually, not even every day. He's platooning
Yeah.
against left-handers, so that's a problem.
Mhm.
But tell us about O'Neal Cruz. I mean, it's been a really disappointing year for him. I know there's still, he's got the 37 stolen bases. I believe he's got 17 home runs.
19, yeah.
So it's not a total washout. But man, since June 10th, O'Neal Cruz has a slash line of 178, 278, 301. On the season, he's barely hitting over the Mendoza line with only a 201 batting average. So, Noah, in your opinion, what has gone wrong for O'Neal Cruz this season?
Man, if I could give you the exact answer, I'm sure I'd be working for the Pirates, not covering them, right? I mean, this is a huge problem for the organization right now. Entering the year, they were banking on this guy being a 5-6 win player, a 30-30 guy. And I mean, even in a bad year, he's not crazy far away from that with 37 steals and 19 home runs. But I mean, you look at like the month by month. In April, he was one of the best offensive players in baseball. With I think he had 10 home runs and 15 steals, something around that neighborhood. I remember they played a series in LA against the Dodgers in late April, and he was the best player on the field that series against the Dodgers. And you just see that tremendous potential, right? The potential that everyone saw in July in Atlanta in the home run derby, where he's hitting balls that still haven't landed.
Mm-hmm.
But it just hasn't worked out for him. And it's like he fell off a cliff, right? Like they moved him to the leadoff spot in mid-April, and for like 2 straight weeks, no one could get him out. You were either putting him on base and walking him, which quickly turned into a double because he would steal, or if you pitched to him, he was going to hit something ridiculously hard, like setting exit velocity records, and the swing speed has taken a step forward this year. Like I said, it's physical tools. That's the story about this guy. But as the game kind of adjusted, he's just looked lost. Like you pointed out, I mean, he's been one of the worst hitters in baseball since June. He's getting dominated by left-handed pitching, which if you look at his splits in the second half of last season, really from like post All-Star break 2024 to the end of the year, he crushed left-handed pitching. Mm-hmm. And for him to be this much of a liability where they won't even play him, they're playing Alexander Canario over him against left-handed pitching. And no disrespect to Alexander Canario, but again, O'Neal Cruz is a guy who's supposed to be the star player of this team. And he just looks lost. His approach is, in my opinion, way too laxed. He's watching way too many pitches. And if you look at the metrics of how he performs when he's behind in the count, it's everyone typically performs worse when they have 2 strikes, right? That's just the thing of baseball. Mm-hmm. But his numbers are like dramatically lower than even the expected rate for an average player with 2 strikes. The at bat is essentially over once he gets behind in the count, and he's going up there and watching too many pitches. It looks like he's guessing wrong all the time. And if he doesn't get the one exact pitch in the exact location that he's sitting, he's striking out. And it's become a common theme where this guy will go 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts. And a lot of these strikeouts are strikeouts looking. It just tells me that he's in his own way right now. That he has no consistent approach at the plate that he feels confident in. And that's tough when you're at this point in his career. At this point in the Oneil Cruz timeline, a lot of people expected this guy to be an all-star, to be what Elly De La Cruz is. And I know we keep comparing those two because they have the similar build, and I mean, their names are even kind of similar, right? But like, you just look at the one guy and the other, and the one guy has continually got better. And Oneil Cruz, I mean, he is an objectively worse player than he was last year. And last year he was just, he was kind of good. But even then, when he had 20 plus home runs, 20 plus steals, you were waiting for that next gear to be hit. And I don't know if it's the move to center field that took some wind out of his sails. I don't know if he's just disengaged because the team's been so bad this year. I think there is some frustration for him being in a lineup where there's no lineup protection. And if you look at how opposing pitchers go up against him, especially earlier in the year, his bat was totally different than everyone else's at bat. Like, because he can hit a ball 450 feet still. But I think that maybe there's a little bit of exhaustion and fatigue on his end of knowing that I'm the only guy that pitchers are really coming after right now and like trying to avoid. And it's tough when you get nothing to hit because there's no one around you that's really hitting. But at the same time, them's the breaks when you're the best hitter on a team. Like that's the reality that Mike Trout's gone through for his whole career, and Elly De La Cruz in Cincinnati. I mean, who else are you fearing in that lineup, right? Like, that's just the reality of playing Major League Baseball. When you're the best player on the team, you're not going to get a lot of good pitches to hit. It's on you to figure it out. And he really failed at that this year. This was an immense disappointment for him. And you head into 2026, if you're the Pirates, you really have to wonder, what can you actually expect from this guy? Because you need him to be a 5-WAR player. Is that even remotely responsible to expect at this point? Can you hope that he gets back to like that 2-WAR, 3-WAR platform? Can you get there? I don't know. They need him to be way more than he has been this year.
I wonder if he's a change of scenery guy. Like,
I think so.
You mentioned like him, just maybe it's fatigue, exhaustion, just in that situation. He doesn't seem particularly, I don't know, just from what I see, doesn't seem particularly happy there. That could just be, I have no idea, but it just, I wonder if he went to a different organization, if there would be, an improvement. But do you think for sure, like what would you say are the chances he's with Pittsburgh? Do you think there's any chance of a trade, or he's going to be their center fielder next year?
I don't think they can trade him now because his value's too low.
Okay.
They would be, you would be wasting a great asset who still has 3 years of control. I think the best thing the Pirates can do to help Oneil Cruz, I think he needs a veteran Latin player who isn't just in the twilight of his career, but someone who is in their prime and can kind of say like, hey man, I've gone through everything that you've gone through. And I get it, but this is how you have to go about your workday. I think the one guy that he's really connected with throughout his time in Pittsburgh was Carlos Santana. And he really missed out on some very, big mentorship moments with Santana, because in 2023, he broke his ankle 9 games into the season and was out for the whole year. And they ended up trading Santana in July. But I think that's something that they need to get more of in this team. And just like, some people will overrate the veteran presence in a clubhouse. I personally think it is especially beneficial for Latin players, just because they're far away from home, and it's just a whole different life that they're living compared to, having your family one state over or whatever. And if you bring in like a veteran guy who says like, yeah, you know what, I've gone through all of these things and I figured it out, something that they can connect with a little bit more. You've seen it in other baseball dynasties, right? You bring in that kind of veteran leader who connects with the younger players, and it takes off. And I think that that's something the Pirates could really benefit from for Oneil Cruz, just having someone that he can kind of look up to and not feel like, hey, the weight is all on your shoulders. No, like, here's someone you can lean on a little bit.
Right. Noah, let's move to talking about this Pittsburgh rotation. Pirates have a lot of young and very interesting arms. Obviously, you've got Skeens at the top. I do know who he is, by the way. Heard of him. But so you've got Skeens as the number 1 there. But they've had some interesting arms come up this year and flash. Give us your best guess on what this rotation looks like heading into 2026.
All right. So yeah, that Skeens guy's probably going to be in the number 1 spot. If he's not, then something went
Pretty good.
drastically
He's
wrong.
pretty
He's
good.
pretty good. Yeah. I'll say this. I don't expect Mitch Keller to be back next year. I think that
Okay.
he will be traded this offseason. So I think their number 2 spot in the rotation is going to be a free agent. I think that you looked, I mean, they have a surplus of young arms. One thing that they're missing is left-handed pitching. They really only have like one left-handed starter, and it's a guy in AAA, Hunter Barco. He's a top 100 prospect. He'll be up sometime next year. I don't think he's going to be on the opening day roster. So I think I expect them to sign or acquire a veteran left-hander who can start the year as their number 2 starter. He won't finish the year as the number 2 starter because I think that will eventually be taken over by a Bubba Chandler, a Braxton Ashcraft, a whoever else is in the organization. But they're going to want a second established veteran presence at the top of that rotation behind Skeens, a left-hander probably, because left-handers actually do, if you look at the metric history, left-handed pitchers perform pretty well in PNC Park by the way the ballpark's built. So I think that'll be a number 2. And then 3, 4, 5, you're looking at Johan Oviedo will be in there, a guy who was pretty solid in 23, missed all of last season due to Tommy John. He's made a couple of starts this year. He looks like a WWE wrestler, man. This guy is huge. I like his stuff. I think he can be at worst an innings eater. Someone who can log 180 innings, which you kind of need in the middle of your rotation. And I think at best he can be a number 2, number 3 starter. So I expect him to be in the mix there. Bubba Chandler, obviously the top pitching prospect in baseball, will be in the mix there. I don't know if it's an absolute guarantee that he's in the opening day starting rotation. I think it's a guarantee that he's on the roster in some capacity. It's just he needs to show the ability to go deeper into ball games. And then you have a couple of other guys, Braxton Ashcraft, Mike Burrows. Those are 2 guys that I would look at as, the 2 competing for that final rotation spot. I think Ashcraft is the better of the 2. His stuff is nasty. His numbers have been phenomenal this season, but this is a guy who has a ton of injury history. Lots of surgeries, lots of missed time. I think entering this year, his career high in innings pitched in a professional season was under 70. So they're really trying to be cautious with how they use him on the mound. And if he is in the starting rotation at the start of the season, I'm not entirely sure that he's going to finish the year as a starter. I think he's going to be a guy that they have to switch back and forth to the bullpen. So that leaves Burrows in play. Jared Jones is a guy who will be in the rotation next year. He just won't be in on opening day. I don't think he'll be ready by then. So yeah, I'll go with Skeens, veteran left-hander, Oviedo, Chandler, and then I'll say Ashcraft as the 5th.
Okay. All right. Good stuff. Yeah, Oviedo's been a guy who's been a boon for people who picked him up in fantasy over this past month or so. Showing some pretty interesting skills with a 13% swinging strike rate, 30.6% CSW. He's doing really well in terms of in-zone contact rate, has really gone down. So definitely seems like the Pirates had a nice find there with Johan Oviedo. And you mentioned Jarrett Jones. When do you think, where's he at in his recovery, and when do you think we see him back with the team?
I think we'll probably see him in May in the major leagues. He probably, knowing Jared, like he'll be mad that I said he's not going to be on the opening day roster because that's just who he is. He's a bulldog. He's a competitor. But I just don't see a need to rush him, especially when you look at the guys that they have to fill his spot for 1 month in the rotation. It's not like they're picking through scrubs. I mean, they have a lot of legitimate options internally, and like I said, they'll probably sign another guy or 2 as well. And their history throughout this regime of signing pitchers has gone pretty well. Like these veteran guys who they just need you to cover 80 innings in the first half of a season. They hit on those guys. Some of them stall out at the end of the year, but typically they don't want them in the rotation at the end of the year anyway. So I think that Jones is probably, they're going to ease him back in. They've had this strategy over the last couple years, kind of started it with Skeens. They did it a little with Chandler and Burrows and some other guys this year, where they slowly build your volume in spring training. They don't let you throw a ton in spring training games, and they let you start the season in AAA only throwing 2 or 3 innings a start. So by the time you are stretched out to go 5 or 6 innings, it's mid-May. And then you can join the major league team with only 20-something innings of work under your belt. So you're primed to throw 100 to 120 innings in the major leagues, and you meet that 140 inning mark having done most of your work at the game's highest level. I kind of expect that to be the story with Jones this year. I think they're going to really take it easy on him in spring training. He's probably going to hate that, but he's going to go through it, and then they're going to build him up in some rehab assignments. And I think by May, probably mid-May, he'll be back in the rotation.
Got it. You have time for one more question, Noah?
I got time for.
All right. I wanted to ask you about that guy we mentioned, Paul Skeens.
Mm-hmm.
And there's not much to say, in terms of his performance. Like, the dude is a stud.
Right.
It sounds like it looks like he's going to win the Cy Young. But what I want to ask you about is, what is he like off the field? Like, if you could just give our listeners, we see the stuff with Livy Dunn, like he's kind of become a little bit of a celebrity, because of that. But give us a glimpse into his personality and his clubhouse presence.
If I could define it in one word, it would be disciplined.
Mm-hmm.
He gets the tag kind of, some people will call him robotic, or, like he's like not a human, but I just think the military discipline is pretty clear with him. I think just every second of his day is accounted for. It's just like something along the lines of, okay, well, if I commit 1 second to something outside of my plan, there's a very good chance it could turn into 10 minutes, right? If I talk to this one person here in the clubhouse, then other people are going to see I'm talking, and then all of a sudden it's going to turn into a 20-minute scrum, and I'm going to be late to my workout. I'm going to be late to this. And I think from a very early part of his professional career, he recognized that, my journey is going to be a lot different than a lot of people. This is a guy who also went from, in a span of 2 years, went from a two-way player at the Air Force Academy to the best pitcher in the world. And no one can really prepare for the social adjustment that one has to make from doing no interviews at all to being one of the faces of the sport. So I think his adjustment to that is just kind of being hyper focused on the task at hand. If he had it his way, I said this the other day when I was going to play in my, men's league softball game. It's like, this is what Paul Skeens wishes Major League Baseball was like, where you could just show up with your friends, play the game, and go home, but still get paid what he gets paid, and that's just kind of how he goes about it. This is just his thing. This is one of his only interests in life, really. And it's his only focus. It's all he thinks about when he's at the ballpark and when he's not at the ballpark. Even when he's not thinking about baseball, it's an intended purpose of, okay, part of the way I get better at baseball is by not thinking about baseball in these next 3 hours. And then it's back to thinking about baseball. That's just kind of how he operates. It's very interesting to follow and cover because, I think he's going to be a guy that when it's all said and done, he's going to be one of those, those one name guys, those Tigers, LeBron, those type players where he's recognized as one of the best to ever play his sport. And those players, you kind of talk about how they're a little bit different up here, right? That's what's required to be that dominant for that long. I think Paul has that mentality. And if the body holds up, I don't really see anything stopping him from doing that because of the way he just goes about his business.
Mm-hmm. All right. Interesting. Well, thank you for that perspective. And thank you for your perspective on all of this. This was really great, Noah. Thank you for your time. If you could tell our listeners where they can find your work, where they can find you on social media, and anything else that you wanted to plug.
Yeah. Go ahead and check out all of my work. You can find it at post-gazette.com. You can follow me on social media on X _Noah Hiles. My pin tweet, if I'm going to promote one thing, you kind of talked about it already. It's my feature I wrote on Konnor Griffin. It's my pin tweet. It's a jarring photo when you see the pin tweet of a kid who was in an accident and nearly lost his eye. But it tells the story of a guy who I think is going to be one of our one of our game's next top stars. So I would recommend everyone giving that a read if you can. So, but yeah, thank you for having me on. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I just want to plug that article. It was so good. And you do, so it is behind a paywall, but it's 99 cents.
Yeah.
And I signed up, and I encourage anybody, and support good writing. It's 99 cents for 4 weeks is the deal that the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette is running right now. So definitely highly recommend that. It's worth it. Well, thank you again, Noah. I am gonna take a quick break, and I'll be back with my co-hosts, Mike and Dave. All right, we are back. We're back here for our fantasy follow-up segment. I've got my normal co-host here with me. I've got Mike Carter and Dave Funnell, and we're just gonna get right to it, fellas. My question to you, like we did last week after we talked Guardians, is I'm going to ask you, which Pirates player are you most interested in drafting? Obviously, we're very, very early. Most people haven't even thought about next fantasy season. They're focusing on finishing out this year, but we like to get out ahead of things. Which Pirates player are you most interested in drafting in 2026? Mike, I'm going to start with you.
Is it wrong to say Andrew McCutcheon? No, I'm kidding.
The Pirates are probably going to do like another 1-year deal with him, and he'll kind of be, he'll be like a sneaky, decent fantasy asset, at least in deep leagues.
Yeah, he'll be 45 and still DHing, hitting 5th for the Pirates, right?
Exactly.
And they'll bring Tommy Pham back just for fun as well.
Yeah.
The thing I think with the Pirates that's interesting, we've talked quite a bit about some of their players in our group chat, and I know we might talk about it a little bit later, but there's a lot of we're sort of split on O'Neal Cruz, right? I mean, I've been on record as saying that I don't think he can hit, even though he puts up really good fantasy numbers. But I'm not super interested in him for next year. And we talked a little bit about how he's going to lose the shortstop eligibility, which makes him a little bit less of an attractive piece there. And I think a lot of people are going to look at this and think, oh, we got to go for one of those pitchers. You got Bubba Chandler, you got Skeens, you got all these guys that seem like they're coming up. But one guy that I am interested in that seems to kind of be flying under the radar a little bit with everything that's going on right now is Nick Yorke. I think that there's something there, and I'm waiting for him to kind of get an opportunity to show that he can do some things at the game's highest level. They just brought him up. He's not playing a heck of a lot. He's had some success at the minor league level. He's not a big power guy. He's going to hit probably double-digit home runs, probably low to mid-teens. He's going to knock in 60 to 70 runs. He's got some speed. But what I am interested in is the hit tool. He's a player that has hit at every level that he's been. You go back to 2024 when he was with the Red Sox and still in their system, and he had a 310 average, and then went over to Pittsburgh and hit 355. So I'm interested to see what they're going to do with him and how they're thinking about using him. And if you look at what the Pirates have on paper, it doesn't really appear that he's got a ton of competition there. I mean, I know they have Nick Gonzalez and they like him at second base, but it really feels like there's at bats in the middle infield in this lineup. I don't think Jared Triolo is an answer long-term, even though he's had some nice productive times there this year for them. I think Yorke is a guy that I'm interested in kind of taking a little bit deeper dive on this winter. I don't know if that means that I will take him, high in a draft or anything like that, but I do think that there's some value there for a 23-year-old guy who was really highly regarded in the Red Sox system and who doesn't seem to have a lot of competition for playing time moving forward next year.
You're probably going to be taking Nick Yorke over O'Neal Cruz next year, Mike. Let's be honest. I mean, you hate O'Neal Cruz that much, I think.
You know what it is for me, and I'll just be really honest, and we could do a whole show on this. It's not a hatred. I think what it is for me more than anything is I think that there are times where we fall in love as players and analysts when we look at the StatCast and we say, oh my God, this guy should be this. And then sometimes a guy is not exactly that thing, right? So people sometimes, we talk about it often on the show, there are players that outperform what the peripherals say they should be doing. And there are also players who underperform what the peripherals say they should be doing. And O'Neal Cruz's skill set really looks to be something that you would really want to have on your team. Who wouldn't want a 26-year-old guy that's 6'7" and runs like the wind? But do you want a 6'7" guy who hits 200 and has a WRC plus of 87, who's a 1.5 WAR player? Do you want that? Like, maybe you do. Maybe you are going to suffer the bad batting average and the horrible OBP to get your 19 home runs and to get your 35 stolen bases. And I could be dead wrong on that, and I will stand corrected on that. But I'm telling you, I will stand by that. I don't think he can hit. He hits the ball really hard when he hits it. He does not hit it often enough, and that's kind of a problem in baseball.
Dave, before we move on to your player, any thoughts on O'Neal Cruz and any of the points that Mike brought up?
Yeah, I'm torn on him because I do have him in one of my home leagues, and I'm stuck with him due to however contracts work. But I've been frustrated watching him this year. I mean, you watch any of his games and go look at those graphics where they show where the pitches were, and he's swinging at pitches outside the zone all the time. It's frustrating because it's like he hasn't learned anything and he's getting worse. But at the same time, he's going to finish this year with probably 20 home runs and 37 stolen bases. And that's not nothing. That's a pretty significant number there that you can pick up where you can get some power and some speed. And I know he's hitting 200 this year, but I mean, he hit 259 last year and I shouldn't say 250 the year before. That was the injured year, but I don't think he's a 200 hitter. And I don't think he's a 259 hitter, but if you can get 230 out of him with 20 and 40, that's something. And I know we were talking off air about that draft, the way too early draft, and he went 33, I think you said
30th overall.
30th, even more. That's too rich for my blood, but I can still see a top 6 round pick, I want to say, just because he's going to give you 4 categories with the odd chance that maybe he does take a step forward and maybe he does bat 230 or 240. But if he gets you 20 and 40, that's pretty damn good.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you guys a question. I want to ask you a question, Chris, about that, because you guys are both better players than I am in terms of fantasy. But when you look at you look at his StatCast and you see like 99th percentile for hard hit percentage, 98th percentile for barrel percentage, bat speed is off the charts. But then you see an expected batting average of 234, and you see a whiff percentage of 34.9%, a K percentage of 31.9%. What do you see happening there that's going to change that, or do you not care? Is this somebody that you would take in a 3rd round pick, or is that someplace where you're taking a different kind of player?
For me, if he ends up in the 3rd round, which, to be honest, with the way he's finishing the year, I think we're looking at him more as like a 4th round in a 15-team league, probably at that 3-4 turn, kind of where he went this year, maybe a little bit later. So I probably would not take him at that point if that's where his ADP settles. That batting average risk is, and I probably underestimated that risk. I will note, though, is the fact that his batting average on balls in play, he's gotten pretty unlucky this year. It's at 263, which is significantly lower than his career average. Last year, he was at 347. So probably some good fortune that led to the 259 batting average last season. But some poor fortune that's led to this 200 batting average so far this year. He's probably somewhere in the middle. I'd say he's probably more true talent, like a 230, 240 hitter. And I don't know. I mean, at that point, that's tough to take someone who's going to sink your batting average like that. And here's the other thing I think that probably dissuades me even more. I had hope going into the year that he had not figured out, but had at least been passable against left-handed pitching, which he showed at the end of last year. This year, he's taken a major step back to the point that the Pirates are no longer playing him against left-handers. I am not taking a player in the first 4 rounds of a draft who is not an everyday player. I'm sorry. Like, I need a guy who I know is going to be in the lineup pretty much every day. I'm not taking platoon players at that point. So for me, I'm probably going to be out on him unless I don't see anything changing. And, I really think he's someone who needs a change of scenery. I talked about a little bit with Noah, and there does seem to be some frustration, unhappiness. I mean, there were already a little bit of like off the field concerns with him. And I think being in that environment in Pittsburgh, a losing team, just no one protecting him in the lineup, I think that's just I don't see things really changing for him. Maybe he gets a little bit luckier next year with the BABIP, but not someone that I'm willing to invest a premium pick in. Dave, let me toss it to you. Who is your player that you're most interested in heading into next year?
I'm really interested in Braxton Ashcraft. I like what he's been able to do this year. I mean, he entered the season as one of the team's top prospects and one of their best pitchers. And I think he's got one of the best stuff on the team. I think Eno had it at 115 stuff plus, which is pretty incredible. This season, he's a 2.47 ERA, 120 WHIP, 23% K rate, 8.6% walk rate. That's pretty good. And I know in the prospects report, Keith Law also said that, his command and control, he's been doing it for long enough that it seems real. It seems like this is something that he can sustain. He's got 3 excellent pitches that are hovering at or below 200 batting average. The thing that worries me is that I think he needs to work on his fastball. And I also think he just needs to stay healthy. Shocking that I'd be the one to bring that up.
I was just waiting. I didn't know if you were like fully aware, but that was something that Noah brought up in the interview was about his history of injuries coming up. So way to take the wind out of my sails here, but go ahead.
All right. But I mean, he had Tommy John, so he's got that out of the way. And he had forearm tightness, which kind of prevented him from getting called up earlier. But it feels like the Pirates are doing the right thing. It feels like they're managing his innings. He had 73 total innings last year. This year, it's at 106 between the majors and the minors. And he's transitioned into a starter into the second half. But I kind of think there might be a closer role in the future with him there. I mean, if you look at the Pirates, they have Paul Skeens next year. I think they have Keller. Jared Jones will be coming back and Bubba Chandler. That's a pretty good foursome. Maybe there's a spot for them to put Ashcraft at the end of the rotation, but there's also a chance, I think, maybe he transitions into being a future closer. But I like him a lot. I think he's someone I would take a chance at the end of drafts, so that if he does fail, or if injuries come back, or maybe he's just in the bullpen and not high leverage, that maybe I can let him loose. But I'm looking for him next year, late in drafts.
Yep, I think he's a good late round flyer. That's going to be one that you want to see in spring training, like how that battle shakes out. What Noah was saying, and if Dave, you were actually at the interview and would prioritize the right things, instead of working your full-time job, and you were actually there, you could have heard Noah say that Braxton Ashcraft and Mike Burrows would be battling for that 5th rotation spot in spring training, most likely. He also mentioned that he thinks Keller is pretty likely to get traded in the offseason.
Absolutely.
But maybe next time you'll do the right thing and actually show up to the interview.
I'll work on
it. Yeah, so Ashcraft and Burrows, I think that's going to be a battle to watch in spring training. I see them kind of similar. Like if you look at their skills, like they both, neither of them, I think, is going to be like, a big star, but I think they're both going to be serviceable, rotation pieces, and I think fantasy viable pieces. So it'll be interesting to watch how that shakes out. For me, you mentioned him. Player I'm looking at is Jared Jones, and he was someone I was targeting this year. I only ended up actually with one share, a DC that I drafted much earlier before spring training. But I was excited about him heading into the year. Was super bummed when I saw that he got injured. But I think he like in a DC where we're drafting 750 players, and I think he's going to probably be at a pretty affordable price, right? Because most people are going to see he missed the whole year. But from what Noah was saying, he thinks by late May, early June, we're going to see Jared Jones back with the team. He's obviously going to need some time to ramp up. And, guys coming back from injury, we have to be a little bit cautious with. But, I think the price is going to be palatable enough that I'm okay just stashing him, on my bench until he's full go. And I think, again, like the skills that we saw were really promising. So he's someone that I'm going to be willing to take a flyer on. I kind of, when I do these DCs, I try to get like one of these pitchers coming back from injury on each of my teams, just to kind of give my team a boost like halfway through the season. Because, you start out with a full staff and then inevitably people get hurt. But then it's nice to know you have a guy like this year. For me, I had a team with Yuri Perez, a team with Shane Bieber. Bieber took much longer than I thought, but just to have that guy that comes back and you're getting quality production, that can be a really nice boon for your team. So Jared Jones is someone that I think I'll be buying into the discount next season. Mike, I want to ask you about this Pittsburgh bullpen. Right now, it looks like Dennis Santana is the capital C closer for this team. Kind of just happened because of the trade of David Bednar. I don't know, like Dennis Santana is not like some lockdown. He's not Cade Smith, right? Like we talked about the Guardians bullpen last year, and it was pretty obvious like who the guy was, because Cade Smith was just, he's just an extremely talented reliever. I don't know if anybody really feels that way about Dennis Santana, but we know how cheap the Pirates are, right? And we know Santana has the job right now. What's the likelihood you think that we're just going to go into next year and say, we're almost going to look at Dennis Santana like a Kyle Finnegan, right? Like a guy in a bad team who just has a job, not great skills, but we're just in it for the saves, baby. So who cares?
Yeah, you said a couple of key things. The Pirates are notoriously cheap. I think he's arbitration eligible next year, contract wise. He's kind of a 29-year-old, dare I say, journeyman. If you look at his StatCast, it is kind of interesting to go back through the years and see how he's developed over time. He's generally, if we had to kind of have a rule of thumb for how we look at him, historically he had been a pretty high ground ball type of pitcher, except 2 years ago he added a little bit of velocity, and that really seemed to help him out. And he's got a really good chase percentage. He gets guys to go after stuff. But there are some warning signs here that we might want to take a look at. His ERA is 2.29. His expected ERA is a full run and a half higher than that at 3.69. He's given up the largest hard hit percentage of his career. He's got the lowest strikeout percentage that he's had in his career, 21.8% strikeout. And he's getting the job done. I'm surprised that he was not traded. I thought he was going to go when Bednar moved too, and I thought, they'll just let Isaac Mattson close. But Isaac Mattson's 30 years old too. It's not like he's a young prospect. I think the chances are actually pretty high that they go into the next year with Santana being the guy that's their closer. Is he really cut out to be a closer? I would say no. I see some warning signs. I think, like I said, the exit velocity was up way higher this year than it was last year. There's some things there that could go wrong in a hurry. I think he's a little miscast as a closer. He's a really good 7th or 8th inning guy. To Dave's point earlier, if Pittsburgh did do something, I don't want to say unthinkable, and look at a guy like Braxton Ashcraft as their closer, I think he's absolutely got the stuff to be able to do it. And when he first came up, I thought that might be the direction they were going in, although they did say at the time that they were going to give him some starts, and they did that really to manage his workload, as you guys were saying. But as of right now, I think Dennis Santana is the closer there. In terms of where I would place him in relation to other closers, he's definitely in that lower third for me, just because I think there's a high risk of volatility here.
Yep. Do you just have a thing with like these Ashcraft guys like becoming potential closers? I heard from you for years about Graham Ashcraft and how he was the guy. Eventually, I'm still waiting for him to be the Reds closer. Now we're on to a new Ashcraft. Now I'm going to be hearing for the next 3 years of this podcast how Braxton Ashcraft is the guy who should be in the closer role. I don't know, man. Just a very odd Coincidence?
Yeah, I actually, when it first came up, I had a complex about that because I thought maybe I wonder if they're related, and that's why I like them so much. But Graham Ashcraft is a whole other issue. You can't stay healthy, but you want to see a fun Statcast page? Go check that guy's Statcast page out. I mean,
they're not related, right?
No, I don't believe so. But
okay.
Ashcraft's stuff is insanely good with the cutter and the slider. I actually last year in Arizona at First Pitch Arizona. By the way, if you haven't signed up yet, there's still time. It's the most fun weekend of the year. I had talked about that with Eno close up because I felt the same way that he did, that Ashcraft is a closer in waiting. Although right now it does look like Tony Santana is the closer in Cincinnati for now. He got some really big outs last night in that game against San Diego.
All right, you couldn't help yourself. Even when I bring up Graham Ashcraft, how he hasn't worked out, you still had to tell me about how great a Statcast page looks. I mean, it's crazy.
He really could be a good one if he got an opportunity. But time's running out. Time's running out.
Anything else on this Pirates team, guys? Any other fantasy related notes on this team, either for this season or someone you're looking at for next season? I'll just note quickly on Jared Triolo. I mean, listen, it's Jared Triolo, so nobody's getting too excited here. But he is playing every day and batting leadoff for this team. So for those of you who are battling it out and, either in the fantasy playoffs or in your roto leagues, I think he's someone that he's kind of sneaky, right? Like he's a guy who's probably available. He's more of like a 15. I don't know if in a 12 if you're really rostering Jared Triolo, but it depends on the matchups, I guess, because he is stealing bases. I will note over the past 30 days, he's got an 838 OPS. He's got 5 stolen bases, a couple home runs. So it's not nothing. If you need some volume, and he plays everywhere, he's eligible at I think 3 or 4 positions in the infield. So definitely someone to take a look at, and he could give you some sneaky production at the end of the season here.
He's definitely out hitting O'Neill Cruz, isn't he?
Oh, there you go. You'd probably take Jared Triolo over O'Neill Cruz. You sick man.
I'd consider it. In the 30th round, I ain't taking O'Neill Cruz in the 3rd, man. No way. No.
Yeah. All right, fellas, we're going to leave it there. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and we are going to be back with our Mental Health Minute. All right, we are back. So for this week's Mental Health Minute, and for those of you listening for the first time, this is when we transition away from baseball talk and we talk about things related to mental health, overall wellness. And for this week, I thought an interesting question and something that hopefully you all can take away something from is we're each going to name one book, the book that has had the biggest impact in terms of improving our overall wellness or mental health. So who wants to go first? Jump in, Dave.
Yeah, I'll go. Surprisingly, I will actually pick a kid's book here as the kindergarten teacher. But it's actually a book that I read with my class every Mother's Day. It's called Love You Forever, and it's by Robert Munch.
I can't even read that. I start to cry every time I look at it.
Yeah, it's a difficult book to get through, and it does hit me hard. But it actually opened my eyes years ago just about how so for those who don't know, it's just a story about how a mom would be there for their child years after years. You see the child as a baby, you see the child as a toddler, and it just grows up to the point where at the end, then it's the son who was the baby as an older person coming in and taking care of the mother. And throughout the song, every couple pages, it's the same song that the mother sang to the child, but then the child sings to the mother. It's but it's someone who's living with his mother who is going through a lot of things. I mean, she was just diagnosed with cancer recently. But she will be okay, and it is something that they can get rid of. Knock on wood, it's been great. But just taking care of her and seeing how she's over the years, she's not the strong woman that she was, and she does need me and other people and my sister who's been outstanding. And it just helps. It helped me deal with that fact, knowing that, you know, she does need me, and it's okay. Everything is going to be okay because I've learned from her, and I can be there for her.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's every time I read this book, I think about her. So
That's awesome, Dave.
That's great. Thanks for sharing. Mike, what about you?
I'm in a little bit different direction because you guys know I'm a thief of joy. So
no, Dave is usually the thief of joy. Yeah, you're not too bad with that.
The book that I read in the last few years that really cemented some things for me and really kind of brought some things full circle for me was a book called Grit by Angela Duckworth. And maybe some of you out there who are listening have heard of it or read it. And she's a psychologist. And what she found was she was studying what the key to success was for people, like what things made them be successful. And the book really kind of started with talking with teachers who worked in really tough schools. So I related to that pretty easily. And what she said was, in studying those things, it really wasn't any one trait that stood out as to why people were successful and seemed happy in their careers. But she termed what was important the idea of grit. And what she referred to it as is not only the passion that you exude for something that you do, but how well you're able to persevere when the chips are down and things aren't going well. And for anybody who's looking for a good read, it's an easy read. It's not like super highline psychology stuff that would be difficult for somebody to read through. It really kind of just points to that idea that, like, you got to be one persistent person to be able to be successful, because you're going to fail a lot more than you're going to succeed. It's a really, really good book. And it's a little older now. It's been out for a few years, but that passion and perseverance trait was more important than any skill that anybody had. Because you can teach the other stuff, right? Like, you can't teach somebody to be passionate, and people really struggle to learn how to persevere. I see it firsthand in my work. So that's a book that I think a lot of people would like to read, or even just skim through. There's a lot of really good stuff in there.
Yep, good stuff. Yeah, I haven't actually read the book, but I've heard a lot of podcasts with Angela Duckworth and seen things, and it's like a whole curriculum at the school that I used to work at. There was a whole curriculum around grit, and yeah, it's really taken off, and there's so much to be gained from that. All right, for my book, I picked have you guys heard of The Four Agreements by
Yes.
Don Miguel Ruiz? You guys ever read it?
I've not read it, but I've heard of it.
I highly recommend, man. It's a very quick, easy read, but there's so much wisdom within it. I'm just going to read on the cover of the book here. I have it in front of me. It tells you what the four agreements are, and it summarizes it pretty quickly here. So I'm just going to go through each of them. Number one is be impeccable with your word. So these are kind of just like principles to live by. And it's kind of the premise of this. So be impeccable with your word. Speak with integrity. Say only what you mean. Avoid using the word to speak against yourself or to gossip about others. Use the power of your word in the direction of truth and love. That's the first agreement. Second one is don't take anything personally. Nothing others do is because of you. What others say and do is a projection of their own reality, their own dream. Mm-hmm. When you are immune to the opinions and actions of others, you won't be the victim of needless suffering. Third one is don't make assumptions. Find the courage to ask questions and to express what you really want. Communicate with others as clearly as you can to avoid misunderstandings, sadness, and drama. With just this one agreement, you can completely transform your life. Last one, always do your best. Your best is going to change from moment to moment. It will be different when you are healthy as opposed to sick. Under any circumstances, simply do your best, and you will avoid self-judgment, self-abuse, and regret. And I'd say, I mean, I love all of these, but the last one probably is something that I've, over time, tried to incorporate more and more into my life and has made such a difference. Just, I tend to be a pretty self-critical person and hard on myself. And I think
yes, you are.
So I think just incorporating that idea of I'm just going to do my best, whatever it is, right? Whether it's this podcast, whether it's work, being a dad, being, what all the roles that I have, right? Just knowing, like, obviously, if there are areas that I need to be aware of and improve, great. Like, I can work on that. But avoiding that self-criticism by just acknowledging I did my best in that situation. And that's made a pretty significant difference in my life. So
yes. And if you didn't do your best and you reflect on that and know that, then that's an area that you can attack the next time, right?
Right. And look at, well, what were the reasons? Maybe there were reasons for why I didn't do my best, or, kind of examine that a little bit more. So.
Yeah. I mean, it could be exhaustion. It
Right.
could be poor nutrition. It could be thinking about Cruz too much.
It could be thinking about O'Neal. That has been the culprit quite a few times this past year. So anyway, I hope that was helpful for anybody listening, and definitely recommend, and picking up any of those books that we mentioned. They could definitely be helpful. But we are going to leave it there for today. We're going to be back next week with another episode. Thank you so much for listening. For Dave Funnell, for Mike Carter, I'm Chris Torres. Thanks for listening to the Fantasy Baseball Beat.